Welcome to another edition of Brownsville Matters. I'm your host, Dr. W.F. Strong. Have with us in the studio today, in the house, as some people say, the cool people, Marlane Reyna. And Marlane's a student of mine from a long time ago, from about 10, 12 years ago, right?
Yes,
something like that.
I graduated in 2014, UTB.
Okay, well, exactly 10 years, yes. But when you were in school, you were already involved in the communication revolution on your own. Right?
Yes, I was. I worked for the student newspaper, the Collegian, and then so I wrote for the newspaper, and then we also had a webcast. So that was like my first professional experience of journalism.
So you've ridden the wave of what I would call the communication revolution of the last decade or so, and you've seen great changes technologically and otherwise. I think you were the first one or of the first generation that had electronic media connected to the newspaper, or an extension of the newspaper on campus, right?
Yes, we did. We had a website, and we weren't I know we had I'm pretty sure we had like Facebook or something. We just didn't use it that much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there was so much in the way of discovery. People didn't know what to do with stuff. Even if you go back to radio in the 30s, et cetera, one of the problems with radio is it had a big reach, but nobody knew what to do with it. Just like the struggle now that a lot of media companies have is finding content and what content works. Same thing with early radio. They didn't know how to fill the time. They would even hang a microphone out the window in New York just to let people listen to street sounds, because they just didn't know how to fill the time. And so a lot of it has been that, we had social media, but where do you find the content to make that medium interesting to people? And how do you get an audience, and how do you find traction with that audience? And still, that's the big question today. And I think people are shocked when they look at social media and they say, oh, my God, this 12-year-old kid is killing it.
Yes. Yes, I find that incredible, too, that all these little kids, I feel like they're editing really well just on their phones. I think it's incredible.
Oh, it's true. My 9-year-old daughter knows a great deal more about editing than I do, and she can do it on the phone. And I have no clue. If you give me a video and say, "Here, edit this," I know how to cut the intro a bit, but in the middle, I don't know how to do all that. So my 9-year-old can do that better than I can. In fact, she's the first generation that I think you might say has grown up digitally programmed in her mind, in a sense. This is all second nature to them. So even though you grew up with a greater connection to digital technology than I did, her generation is beyond you, right?
Yes. Yeah, again, I find it incredible that she has all these special effects and she's just doing it all on her phone with her fingers, and she does it so fast. I'm like, wow, when I was a news reporter and I was editing, it wasn't that fast. And if I wanted to do special effects, I had to download them and drag and do all these things. And then she just does it so quick. It's incredible.
So you graduated in 2014, and you had obviously some skills that you had developed on campus. And then you went from there into TV?
So another thing that I did while I was at UTB, besides writing for the newspaper and, co-anchoring the webcast, I also did an internship at Channel 23.
Okay.
So that was another, one of my first experiences with journalism, and I loved it. I would shadow the news reporters, and then I also did a little bit with creative services, commercials, and then, of course, some of the, boring paperwork. And then I also got to write some stories for their website. Mm-hmm. And then once I graduated, I did apply there, but I didn't get it. So I went to my second love, which is teaching.
Okay.
I became a teacher aide, and I really loved it. I loved working with the preschool children. I was a pre-K teacher aide. And so I was like, okay, let me get my teaching degree and try teaching. And so I did. And then I was a special education teacher. I taught students with special needs from 2015 to 2017. And I loved it. I loved getting to know children. Well, they weren't children. They were in high school, but students with special needs. Sure. I know it sounds corny, but they are so special and they're so smart and they deserve so much. But I always still had that love for journalism there. So when there was an opening at Channel 23 in 2017, I applied and I got it and I left.
Yes. So you went back to your other love.
Yes.
And what was the first story that you worked on that you loved?
I did.
That you were proud of. You said, that was good. I did a great job on that.
I was so lucky when I was there at Channel 23 in Brownsville because our news director, he gave us a lot of freedom. He's like, Marlane, if you think of a story and you like it, just go for it. And then I'll look at it, and if I like it, we'll air it. And so
That's unusual.
Yes, I loved it so much. Tim Gutierrez, he was the best news director I ever had. And so it's hard to say which story I loved because I loved so many of them. But actually, 4. I loved doing stories on education, my teaching background. Right. And then I loved doing stories on important issues like immigration and abortion and LGBTQAI rights. And then I loved history stories. Every Thursday, I would do a history story with Eugene Fernandez. And it was called...
Oh, yes, Eugene.
Yes, it was called Throwback Thursday, and it was so much fun.
He had the great costumes. I interviewed him here on the program.
Oh, he is incredible. Yeah, shout out to Eugene. And so, I'd say like those 4 were some of my favorite stories. Yes. Those 4 issues.
Well, I was wondering, almost everybody who goes into news will be Johnny on the spot, so to speak, when some big thing breaks. They just happen to be in the right place, right time to be in the middle of history. So did you have anything like that within, the history of Brownsville or the Lower Valley, whatever, any story that you fell into by accident?
Yes. There was 3 of them. One, the first one that I guess I want to say put me on the map. I got a lot of, reactions on social media is when Southwest Key let go of 800 employees. Oh. I got a heads up from a friend, and so I was outside the Southwest Key building, and I happened to get video of all the people getting laid off and walking out. And it was so sad, now that I think about it.
And did you interview them?
I might have interviewed a couple, but they were obviously very, very, very upset. They,
Well, the optics is the story in this case.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it was crazy just to see literally hundreds of people walking out, some of them even storming out because they just got laid off. And so, it turned into this huge story. It was crazy. And then another one was where I also got a lot of social media reactions is there was a cop-involved shooting, and I happened to get the audio recording of that shooting. Oh. And for transparency reasons, I decided to share it, even though I put a warning. And so that was really big too.
Wait, you got a hold of the recording, or you got the recording?
Actually, the sheriff shared it to all the reporters. I was just, I guess, one of the first ones to put it on social media,
And it went viral, so to speak?
Yes. Yeah. I did end up deleting it for, because I did it back then in 2017 or 2018, but now it's just not something I was comfortable with because I didn't get the family's permission. And so I apologize for that. And so I deleted it.
By working in media, you learn a great deal about media responsibility and ethics, and it changes a great deal from station to station. And obviously, if you work for the National Enquirer, there's not a lot of concern. It's all about audience and, do we have the goods? And if we have them, then we should air them. And
yes.
They worry about the fallout later. What they care about more is just simple reach. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yes.
So did you have that kind of driving force behind you when you did your station in any way say, okay, here's our mantra, here's what we live by?
Actually, in Channel 23 Brownsville, he didn't push it that much. Yeah, thank God we didn't push it that much.
So not ratings at any cost.
It was, oh yes, of course, we cared a lot about ratings, but it wasn't, at least I felt it wasn't drilled in my head, if it bleeds, it leads. Thank God.
Yeah.
it was more like, I guess, news, what's important. And so again, like I did share that on social media because I was trying to be transparent. It wasn't so much about ratings and views. I was more like, okay, this is what happened. You know, this is why this person was tragically shot and killed by the police. And so I want you all to hear that this is exactly what happened, so that I wanted them to get, like, I guess, the full picture instead of hearing just what the sheriff said or what I said. I'm like, this is what really happened.
Okay.
And so, but again, you know, after, you know, I'm older now. And so I ended up like deleting it last year because I just, I was like, even though I do kind of think my heart was kind of in the right place, I still am not comfortable because I didn't ask the family for permission. I didn't get their blessing. And I think that is so important now. And I'm thankful there was some people who brought that to my attention. They were like, hey, you shouldn't air that, you know? And so I explained to them that I was trying to be transparent, and they understood. But then, like, you know, after watching like a bunch of documentaries about like issues like that, like police brutality, and I noticed that these documentary people and reporters, some of them would say like, oh, we're not going to air it because we didn't get permission. Or they say, hey, we're airing it because we got permission. And so I was like, yes, I think that's so important. And so, yeah, I would never do something like that again, unless I had permission and the family wanted me to.
Well, we live, we learn.
Yes, I learned.
Yeah. And that's a very important and sensitive position for you to take. And a lot of reporters never reach that level of conflict to where they have this epiphany. So good for you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
So, okay, so you did this job for a few years, and then?
I returned to teaching because I wanted more money and more time off. I had just got married. I have a stepdaughter. And so I was like, oh, let's go to my second love. And so I went back to special education, life skills. And again, I loved it so much. I love the kids. And then the pandemic happened. There's a whole other story. And so I was teaching students with special needs during the pandemic. It was wild. But it wasn't just wild. I loved it a lot, and so did the kids, because it was life skills. And so, you know, I had to teach them things like washing dishes and taking care of their pets. And so what I would do is I would actually show them me washing my dishes. I would show them, you know, myself feeding my dog, and then I would see them on camera washing the dishes and feeding their dogs. It was
so your
amazing.
Background in media made you really good.
Yes, it did.
In the pandemic.
Yes,
right?
Yes. I would try to be animated, and I would use my stuffed animals, and I would like also wear flowers in my hair. So yeah, it did help.
That's awesome.
And because I know some teachers struggled with it, but I loved it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, you know, my background helped with that.
Oh, absolutely. I can see it. For me, I did something similar, is that once the pandemic came along and I couldn't do live lectures and things, I went to podcasting. So I would record, 15-minute lectures in podcast form. I didn't do it with TV because I wanted them to be free to, go to the gym and listen, or, mow the lawn and listen. And turned out to be very much liked by the students. So it's great that you take, these skills that you learned in one situation and use them to empower your reach and your effectiveness in a different one. So, okay, so you went through the pandemic with your creative use of technology, and now you're a public information officer?
Yes. There was something else I did want to share during my teaching experience.
Okay.
After I finished teaching special needs, I had the privilege of teaching journalism to high school students.
Oh.
And that was also, they had just came back from the pandemic. So it was really difficult for all of us. Like the students, they were so smart. I know we hear a lot about high school students, being difficult. And I guess, you could say a little bit difficult, but after listening to them, I just understand them so much. Like, they're just so smart. And like, for example, like when they came back, we had the mandatory mask rule.
Yeah.
And so, we were really hard on that. And so I would be like, put your mask on, put your mask on. And they were like, ma'am, but like, if it's dangerous to not wear our mask, why can't we still be at home? And I'm like, that is such a good question. And then they would say, ma'am, but what about when we're in the cafeteria? And I'm like, whoa, another good question. And then there was a time where we had to give all of them hand sanitizers, little ones. And they look at it and they're like, ma'am, this expired 2 years ago. And they were so upset. And I'm like, that is so understandable. But even with like all of those challenges, like it was so beautiful to see the students. I guess, again, the pandemic was so hard on them. They were going through a lot. And then to see them really turned on with photography and videography and interviewing was just so amazing. Like there were students who like, again, it didn't seem like they didn't really care about anything. They didn't care about school. They would come in late. They kind of had an attitude. But when it came to taking pictures, they were so engaged. And I loved it so much. And then I also ended up getting them into doing interviews. And again, just seeing students who were not engaged in any other subject, but engaged in this was, I loved it.
I've always felt that a lot of students who are classified as problem kids are simply under-challenged.
Yes.
They just need a creative outlet.
Exactly. And they were so creative. I loved it.
Well, how did you go from, or was this part of special ed where you also had this other assignment with journalism, or were you a full-time journalism professor?
I was a full-time journalism teacher. There was an opening. The yearbook journalism teacher had left, and they were like, "Hey, Marlane, you used to be a journalist.
You could do this.
Do you want to try it?" And I was like, "Yes." And I did. And again, it was so difficult. Like, I guess because I had just done special ed, and so it was my first time doing like general education.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of trying to be like the old fashioned, lecturer and do this and do that. And the students were not, they were not having it. And again, like first I was like frustrated, but then when you listen to them, they're like, ma'am, we already have English. We write over here. Ma'am, we already have history. And then they were like, ma'am, can you please let us talk? Because we can't talk in other classes. And I'm like, it's just hard to say no, I guess, because I think they're kind of right. So I was like, let me try to find something that they would find engaging. And so that's when I was like, hey, like everybody, let's take pictures. Everybody, let's do videos together. And it really seemed like they enjoyed it.
And then how did you go from there to public information officer?
So I left teaching because my students, it was getting a little bit challenging for the school to have my students I guess all over the place taking photos. And so they weren't allowed to take photos anymore. So I was like, okay, I got this journalism teaching job just got me really into journalism again. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go back to journalism for now. And so then that's when I returned to Channel 23. And at that time, it was now merged together to Channel 4, Channel 23. And it was a totally different experience from Brownsville. And so... I didn't really...
And here you were doing anchoring work, right?
I was doing like sub-anchoring, but it was like at 6 a.m, and it was actually just cut-ins. It was live, and I guess like it was considered anchoring, but it was really short. It was just like little 60 seconds, and then it was over. Then 60 seconds again, and it was over. And then I was... at Channel 23 Brownsville for like 2.5 years. I only did 2 live reports. Like we didn't really have the technology to go live.
So everything was recorded and edited.
Yes.
And this sort of,
I love that way better than live. And so then I go to Channel 4 and it's like everything's live.
Did I tell you this is live right now? Did I tell you?
It's not.
No, just kidding.
I like pre-recorded. And so at Channel 4, it was everything... Like when I started, I didn't go live. It was like a couple of weeks and it was pre-recorded. And I was like, okay, getting my feet wet again. And then I started to do live reports. And I would do live reports at 4, 4:30, 5, 6, and 6:30.
What were you doing live reports about?
It would vary.
I mean, were you doing the weather or were you doing the
I did one weather report. Yes, I did one weather report when there was a freeze. I was outside freezing, like it's really cold. And then I did a lot of crime. It's like if there was, unfortunately, if there was a murder or something, I would be there live right outside of the house saying, this is where the murder took place. And that was challenging because it was hard to memorize a script. And, it didn't look good when you were reading.
Yeah.
So thank God only one time I forgot what I had to say because I was distracted with something else. Like there was something else going on because you have your earpiece in, and so you can hear the anchor talking about other news. And so I remember one time the anchor was talking about like some breaking news that had just happened, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And then it was like, okay, Marlane, you're live in 60 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna say? And so it was really awkward, but the producers were so good. Like they were really good at like, I'm sorry, actually you did get to read your script, but it was just the intro and the outro that you couldn't read your script. So you'll be like, hi, I'm Marlane and I'm outside of this. And then they'd cut to video and then I'd read. And then there was a few times where they couldn't cut to video. So they're like, Marlane, it's just going to be you. And I'm like, oh no. And then my last live report, it was a student who brought a gun to school. That's always triggering for me. And it was 2.5 hours away. And so I was out there from 12 to 6:30. And I was like, at that point, I couldn't memorize anything. So I was just reading off my phone, like even, on camera, I was like, blah, 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 blah. And I remember I got some complaints, not from anybody in the station, they were understanding, but from viewers. They were like, you look so unprofessional reading your phone. And I'm like, you try doing it, just kidding.
Everybody's a critic.
Yes. And so after that day, I was like, hey, I'm live news reporting isn't really for me. And so then that's when I went into producing creative services.
Okay.
And so I got to see the other side, which was commercials and advertising and promotion. So it was kind of like the lighter side. It was like I was still doing like camera work and editing and writing, except it wasn't news. And so, I kind of like that better because I just kind of outgrew the whole bleeds, it leads, murder. I guess I would say that I was maybe too sensitive.
Yeah.
For that. And so I ended up liking it. It was kind of like, like public relations. So I was like, hey, I think I might like public relations. And so that's how I am, like now I'm doing public relations, and that's how I got there.
So now you're helping people to craft a public image?
Yes, I am.
For companies and individuals?
Yes, in a way. I'm the public information officer for the Cameron County District Attorney's Office. So it's, really serious.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously. Yes.
So, but there you have many lawyers that you are responsible for, not just one person, right?
Yes. It's like I do a lot of work with law enforcement agencies. They ask a lot for public information because it's like my job right now, it's like half public information office, like public information requests, like, those legal ones, and then some of the public affairs. Most of it is public information requests. I get, a lot of them every day from like the FBI and other law enforcement agencies.
Right.
And then, of course, there's media too with their requests. And it's a little bit challenging because the laws.
Oh, yeah.
So I still have to learn about that because it's like
you might go to law school next because the law dominates so much of what you need to do.
Yes.
And can't do.
Yes. It's like if I have to be really careful about like what information I release because it could be illegal.
Mm-hmm. You could go to jail.
Yes. And I'm like, oh, I don't want that.
You need the lawyers that you work for to keep you out of jail.
Yes. But other than that, I do like the public relations part. So I'm really trying to expand in that area. And so that's why I bought my own camera, my own Canon, just like that, my microphone and a tripod. And so I'm starting to, doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, but if you work for other people, let's say not public information, because there it's hard to be highly creative. You have restrictions and a territory you must work within, carefully controlled. But when you work for an individual who is a business owner who needs to create a public persona that makes them more successful, then you can help them with that.
Yes, exactly.
Because you understand media and how the media works, and you know how, therefore, to get media attention for free, to publicize an individual's interest in their public persona, right?
Yes, exactly. I think I would be a really good fit for something like that. I have the media background, and then I think the teaching background is really important too, because that's like our like general audience, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I kind of know the way they think, and I can use that to help. Like, I would like to work for a nonprofit, do public relations for a nonprofit. And so I feel like that my experience as a teacher and as a reporter would be really beneficial for nonprofits.
We've had a lot of nonprofits come here and talk to me about their missions, and I'm always very impressed with what they want to do and who they want to serve and how they want to serve them. And it's clear that they need publicity. They need a reach. A lot of people have no idea that they exist, or they don't know the services they offer, and but they don't have the money to hire a professional like you, or they have very little, or they don't have enough for a full-time, but they could use someone like you part-time.
Yes, I think that's a really good idea. And also, freelance marketers, marketing people and journalists out there, I think would be really beneficial for these companies, especially the ones that have like their own camera, their own gear. We can get it done like in an hour.
Yeah. Well, one of the outlets that we have for our communication majors today that has surprised me over the last 10 years, we've had a good number of people who've been hired by companies to just run their social media. That's all they do, is just run their Facebook pages and their LinkedIn pages, and they just make sure that they have a public presence and a positive one.
Yes, I see a lot of that out there too. And I think, I think it would be really beneficial for nonprofits to invest in something like that.
Yeah.
And again, I don't mean to be biased, but I think somebody with a journalism background degree would be really beneficial to that organization, especially someone who knows how to get a lot of followings, knows how to use social media in a way to attract attention. They know those keywords. And journalists are usually really good at that. Our skills are just so transferable.
If someone needs you, how do they reach you?
They can reach me on LinkedIn or my email address.
Which is?
Marlane, marlane.rodriguez@outlook.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so
and on LinkedIn?
Yes,
that's
I'm
how
also
they reach
on
you?
LinkedIn, Marlane Reyna. And then I'm also on Facebook. I still have my reporter Facebook page.
You're still on Facebook.
Yes. It still has the most users.
Yeah, it does, yeah. We joke about it, but it is really, I think everybody's on Messenger. Just about, if you want to. But LinkedIn has come along. LinkedIn for a while was kind of backstage in a sense, but I've noticed more and more people are on there in a professional sense. That's how, people reach me, when they want me to do a talk or whatever. They usually reach me through LinkedIn. That's how they find me. So I've been surprised, by that. If another surprise for me is that I have this Facebook page I started in 2014 and called Stories from Texas. And I have 210,000, followers on that page. They're not really following me, though. They're just following Texas is what they're doing. But I've been surprised at the numbers. And someone said to me recently, this isn't a page, this is a business.
I bet.
And I said, well, it may be, but I don't know how to monetize the thing. I don't know. I don't have the skill or the knowledge or the time, to convert that. But they're right. It's a market that's specialized within a certain demographic, and for someone who knew what they were doing, probably could monetize it nicely.
Yes, agreed.
Maybe I should hire you. You know how to do this stuff.
Yes, I would be perfect for that.
What do you want to do in the next 10 years or so? What's your dream for you?
My dream would be to use my skills to help people and to kind of
nonprofits. You seem to have an interest in helping nonprofits.
Yes, to change the narrative of the Rio Grande Valley.
Okay.
I love the Rio Grande Valley. And
what do you want the narrative to be? You don't like Puro 956?
I love that narrative. I guess because I still see the news side of it, and so I feel it's kind of like border war.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not that. We have a lot of history and a lot of beautiful nature, and so I would like for that to be the narrative, and instead of crime and poverty and obesity and that we're uneducated. I see a lot of those on those wallet websites Brownsville is the fat is and the poor is. And I'm like, no, we're not. And so I would like to change that narrative. Brownsville is, I mean, I'm sure you know, is the second most historic city in Texas. I would love for us to focus more on that. And again, the nature that we have here.
I love what we've done with, for instance, the hike and bike trails. And there are many, many miles of them, and they're wonderful. I like that we have a Renaissance downtown. There's a lot happening there. My students are always surprised when they see, particularly in January and February, that we have these northerners descend upon the campus to take pictures of birds. The students are kind of mystified. So what? And I said, well, you're in like the mecca of birding in America.
Yes.
People descend with their giant telephoto lenses and their faux Banana Republic outfits as they stalk the canes and get the pictures of the birds and the Rosacas, et cetera. But I agree with you. The what do they call it? The tourism, ecotourism, or what's the term they use?
Yeah.
I forget the term that's used a lot, but it's for people really interested in birding and wildlife and nature preserves and such like that. So we do have that narrative that's there and, can be lifted.
Yes. The World Birding Center, I know, takes place in Harlingen.
Yeah.
And so, yes, that's something that I would like to focus more on too. I love the birds here. I take pictures of the birds also. I also have gone to UTRGV to take pictures of the birds. I love them.
I stop all the time and take pictures, not so much of the birds, but just the on a beautiful day when the clouds are right and the light is right, I'll take the pictures of the Rosacas and birds if they're there. Actually, one semester, I gave $100 prize to the best campus photo because I said, we have a beautiful campus and you have cameras with you all the time, so you get a great sunset, whatever. And I did. I paid a young lady $100 for the best picture of the campus, and I had it on my website for a long time. So I like you, I like to empower the students to use their gifts to achieve a kind of artistic brilliance that can be shared for everybody.
Yes, I love that. Another great place to see birds is the Old Brownsville Cemetery. That's another gem that I think is very hidden. Yeah. There's somebody buried in that cemetery from every war except the American Revolution. And I'm like, I don't know if people know that. And I'm like, that needs to be known more.
It's a great birding site, the
yes.
cemetery. You know what cemeteries are also good for? Is wildflowers. A lot of older cemeteries are really good for wildflowers. And we're kind of lacking in the valley. The Central Texas really blossoms with wildflowers in the spring. And so I was driving down here on 77. I said, I don't know if we're not seeding our roadways the way they do up in Central Texas, but we're a great environment for wildflowers. We should do more with that. I know that the highway department seeds the roadways up in the north. It goes back to the Lady Bird Johnson who pushed such things. And I don't know what's happening here, but I'm just wondering if we're not seeding and if the highway department isn't doing it actively the way they do up north. We should do that.
I agree. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Okay, so you have the contact. You make that happen, okay?
I will. I would try very hard to make that happen.
Marlane, great to see you again.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're out doing good things.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay.
Thanks for watching this BSPA video. Go ahead and hit like and subscribe if you like what you see. And if you really like what you see, go ahead and go to our website, brosoperformingarts.org, and smash the donate button. And then we'll really like you too.